Hello guys, Fish767 here. So today we're taking a look at a Golgari Pioneer deck. This specific deck is a graveyard-based deck, and this is a really strong deck. I've already showed it on the channel once or twice, but each one was a different build, and this is another build updated with standard cards, mostly from M20 and M19 and stuff. And Kaladesh is in the sideboard, and I've got some various cards in here. The deck normally plans to go tall with at least a few creatures. It's able to survive a board wipe if you build it, or if you build your board the right way. A second one's a bit of a stretch, but our sideboard helps us to survive that. It's really easily adaptable, and it's meant to stop aggro. It can stop aggro all day unless they have Death Touch. But if they have Death Touch, we have a couple ways around that, once again, in our sideboard. It can stop aggro really easily, and control, it has a hard time against Teferi, but that shouldn't be a huge problem. And if that's something that you're going to see in your playgroup a bunch, just put in the card that removes 5 loyalty counters from a Planeswalker. That'll get rid of the Teferi, and it's not Hero of Dominaria, it's the 3-drop one that stops you from playing instants that you have to worry about. So, anyway, I'm going to get right into the deck. So we run 3 copies of Grizzly Salvage. It's a instant. It costs black and green. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. So that's 3 copies of that. 1 copy of Commune with the Gods, because I don't have a 4th copy of Grizzly Salvage. But this card says reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. Grizzly Salvage is an instant, and Commune with the Gods is a sorcery, so that is one downside to moving to Commune with the Gods, but it doesn't require your black mana. So those are good cards, and the reason why we're playing them is to fill up our graveyard. Then we have 2 copies of Putrefy, which says destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated, which is very nice because we don't have too much artifact. You know, like, we need as much artifact destruction as we can get, especially for those graveyard cards. Then we have 2 Status to Statue. Status is a black or a green to give target creature +1/+1 and Death Touch, and it's an instant. And Statue is for 4 mana, destroy target artifact, creature, or enchantment, which is really nice, and it's also for 4 mana. We run 3 Nemesis of Mortals, which is a 6-drop, 5/5. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard, and then it has pay 9, Monstrosity 5, and it costs 1 less to activate for each creature card in your graveyard, which means that you'll put 5 +1/+1 counters on it, and it'll become monstrous, and you can only do that if it's not monstrous. And of course, if you can set this up correctly, because it costs 1 less for each creature card in your graveyard, you could go Grizzly Salvage turn 1, or turn 2, I mean, Grizzly Salvage turn 3, and then drop in a Nemesis of Mortal on turn 4, and Monstrosity it on that same turn. So you'll end up with a 10-drop on turn 4, which is faster than green without ramp, because Ghalta, I think it's Ghalta, or it might not be Ghalta, but whatever the 5-drop dinosaur is that is a 10/10, it's 5 green mana. So if they don't get mana ramp, we're faster than them. Night Howler is a 3-drop enchantment creature with Bestow for 4, and so what Bestow does is you can instead cast it for that cost, and if you do, it's an aura spell with enchant creature, and it becomes a creature if it's not attached to a creature. And it and enchanted creature get +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards, yours and your opponent's. So what you're going to do with this is bestow it, and then if they board wipe, it'll come back out as a creature after the board wipe's already resolved, and we run 4 of it, and it's a very powerful card. Then we have Storev Dvarkin Lynch. We run 2 of this card. It's a 4-drop legendary creature, zombie elf wizard, trample 5/4, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, return to your hand target creature or planeswalker card in your graveyard that wasn't put there this combat. So the idea is to enchant it with Night Howler to make it really big, swing in, hit, and return another Night Howler to your hand to enchant it again, and then the idea is to just cycle through our graveyard that way. Of course, if we do that, it does get a little bit smaller, a little bit weaker, so don't take too many of the cards. Then we have Satar Wayfinder. We run 3 Satar Wayfinder, and by the way, we run 2 of this, but 3 Satar Wayfinder. It's a 2-drop 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. So he's a body. We can sacrifice him for another card that we have in the deck, and then he gets us a land, which we need, and also fills up our graveyard. Then we have Boneyard Worm, which is a 2-drop. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. We run 4 of this card, and it's a very nice card. We can drop it in on turn 2. Well, really on turn 3, because if we drop it in on turn 2, it's just going to die, because we don't have any 1-drops, besides the Fame, was it? No, Status, my bad. We only have Status, that's our only 1-drop. And we have Nyx Weaver. It's a 3-drop enchantment creature spider. We run 4 of it. It has Reach. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can pay 3 to exile it and return target card from your graveyard to your hand, and it's a 2/3. There's only 2 cards in the deck that you want to exile it for, and I'll point those out when we get there. Then we run 3 Blood for Bones. It's a 4-drop sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you must sacrifice a creature. Then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then return another creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So we sacrifice a Satyr, and then we return Storev, Dvarkin Lynch to the field, and put a Night Howler in our hand. And then we're set for next turn to bestow and then attack in, which is really nice. We run 4 Golgari Charm, and this is our really important piece, so I'm just going to switch to the newer version because it's easier to read. It's 2 for it's a black and a green for an instant. It says choose 1. All creatures get -1/-1 until the end of the turn. So that destroys token decks. Destroy target enchantment. That stops us from getting Leyline of the Voided, which is a very bad card. Or regenerate each creature we control, which stops us from being killed by board wipes. And so we run 4 because that card's amazing. Deadbridge Chant is one of the cards that we'd want to exile for because it's really important. It's 6 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into your hand. It's a really good card. And then the other one that we'd want to exile for is Bow of Nylea. It's a 3-drop legendary enchantment artifact. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. Pay 2, tap it, choose 1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or it deals 2 damage to target creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. Both Deadbridge Chant and Bow of Nylea you could go up a couple copies on and just drop a couple cards in the deck after testing. You might drop a Satyr Wayfinder and then drop the Commune with the Gods, maybe. Of course, that is a maybe, but both of those cards are extremely powerful. On to our lands. Now, I'm using the Poor Players Land package. If you have the better lands, like the expensive dual lands, you could, of course, use those. But this is the cheap players, the Poor Players lands. You got 4 Foul Orchard, 4 Golgari Gilgate, and then 4 Jungle Hollow. And then there's 5 swamps, and 6 forests, and that seems to be working absolutely fine. And then onto the sideboard, we've got 2 Aid from the Cow, 2 Gaia's Blessing, 2 Reassembling Skeleton, 3 From Beyond, 2 Death's Presence, 2 Feed the Pack, and an additional 2 Status to Statue. So the reason why we run these cards is obviously for removal in case they're running like extreme lock out the graveyard. Reassembling Skeleton and our From Beyond are to stop control decks because they can come back and they're really good. And if we use them with Feed the Pack and Death's Presence, we're able to create a large amount of wolves that are pretty big. And then Aid from the Cow is a nice thing to add in with those cards. And Gaia's Blessing is there if we're facing a mill deck. If it's Ashiok Mill, you have to be really careful because that's just going to shut us down really easily. But any other mill deck, Gaia's Blessing does well against. And if you wanted to actually substitute these status to statues for a card called Bile Blight, which is 2 black, and what it does is it gives target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature -3/-3 until the end of the turn. And it's an instant, by the way. You can use that to stop Petitioner decks if you wanted to, since Petitioner is a 1/3, and it also stops Rat Colony decks in case you ever come across one of those. So that might be something that you put into the sideboard, and you could always drop out the Feed the Pack or the Death's Presence, or even the Aid from the Cow, because these cards do cost a lot of mana to play, and they're not going to be useful in every single situation, but I couldn't find very many other cards to put in here. And I feel like these cards round out the deck in the way that we need them to be round out, because our Feed the Pack and our Death's Presence combo very well with our high-powered creatures, making a ton of little dudes and then buffing one of them. So overall, the main board is very good. It's pretty hard to stop. It goes very fast. Like I said, it can go faster than green if they don't get any ramp. If they do get ramp, we're able to make more large creatures than green can quicker. So I just want to point that out. Is our things get bigger faster as opposed to mono green. We also run more removal than mono green does. We're able to stop token decks very easily. We're able to survive board wipes under most circumstances. And if you wanted to, you could run Lotleth Troll, which is a very nice card. It's green and a black for I believe it's a 1/2 or a 2/1 with Trample, and then it has discard a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then pay black to regenerate it. And that card's amazing. It's a very good card, and the only reason I don't have it in here is because I went and traded all mine off. So that's a good card to run. Unfortunately, we can't run any Dredge cards, but if you do have any mono black like Surveil cards, you could run those. A good card might be Doom Whisperer, which would be a pretty good addition because of the Surveil ability once again. And there's a couple other ways that you could add cards to this and modify it. Now, there's also a Dimir variant, and instead of running all these green cards and stuff, you're going to be running more cards like Blood for Bones with Prized Amalgam. So Prized Amalgam is a 3-drop 2/2, or no, my bad, it's 3-drop 3/3 that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard, or if you cast it from your graveyard, at the end of your turn, return Prized Amalgam from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you can use Prized Amalgam with Blood for Bones to sacrifice Prized Amalgam, get back a creature onto the battlefield, and then return another creature to your hand. And then that'll trigger all the Prized Amalgam in your graveyard, not just the one that you sacrificed, and they'll all come back. And so you're able to combine that with Zulaport Cutthroat and just kill your opponent off really quickly. Sir Conrad is another good card to use in that deck. There's also Connive Concoct, which is a very good card to run. And then all the Surveil cards that you can put in there are extremely powerful. So once again, that's Doom Whisperer, Price of Fame, Deadly Visit, a couple other cards, and you can run all these in that deck, and it's very powerful. In addition, you could use Narcomoeba, which is a very good card, and Creeping Chill. Those are both excellent options for that deck. And there's a couple other cards that you could add, but it's just your normal graveyard-based deck. That one's a little bit more combo-y than this one, and it doesn't get as big as quickly, but it's a lot harder for aggro to hit in because we're able to make a bunch of dudes really quick. You'd be running full playsets of Reassembling Skeleton or is it Sanctum Skeleton? Sanitarium Skeleton? Whichever one it is that you have to pay 3 to return it to your hand, but it's a 1/2 as opposed to a 1/1, which is better in some circumstances. So you could run those. And that would be really good. And you can also run creatures that can gum up the board. And so I just wanted to make you aware that you could play this deck as Dimir instead of Golgari, and it would work just fine. The deck plays really well, like I said. I just tested it, and I managed to get 4 creatures up to at least 9 or greater power toughness. One of them was a 16, 14 something with Trample. It was something like that, and it was stupid. And it was the Story of Lynch, once again. If you wanted to, I think that Brawn is legal in Pioneer. I'm not 100% certain. You'd have to check me on that. But if Brawn is legal, you could always run Brawn and then stick him in your graveyard and run more Bow of Nylea. And if you control a forest, what that would do is it would give all your creatures Trample and Death Touch, which means that they deal 1 damage and then the rest hits the player. And that's really deadly in a deck like this. And that's how it used to win. Of course, Vraska and Liliana's are very good in here. I just didn't have the Vraska or Liliana that's specifically good in this deck. Of course, the new one from War of the Spark, the new Liliana, is pretty good. And I just didn't have the right Vraska or Liliana that I felt like I needed to put in here. I'd rather have a little bit more removal. Putrefy is really good, so if you can get more Putrefy, I definitely put that in. And you might add in some cards to do like some selective graveyard removal if you have it. So that would be your Scrabbling Claws, etc., in case you need that. But then again, it all depends on what your meta is playing. The deck, like I said, plays fairly good. I'm not sure that it'll be able to stand the test of time because it appears that Pioneer is like a 3-turn or 4-turn format, and that's not good for a deck like this. We need at like 5 or 6. So but I wanted to let you guys know. I actually have a video on here from a really long time ago when I played another variant of this way back when. So, but I hope that you guys enjoy this deck. It's really fun to play through, and it's pretty balanced. The only problem that I don't like the only cards that I don't like in the deck would be the dudes the Nyx Weavers, because they mill you 2 every turn, but they're really important for how the deck runs, and they can always get you back a card that you need in case you mill the wrong card. And also, if you put in 1 Gaia's Blessing, it's not going to work, because if you draw it, then you can't put it back. So you need 2 for when you're going up against mill to just use and shuffle back in. And that will stop most mill. It won't stop Ashiok, unfortunately. So be aware of Ashiok. Ashiok has to die right away, immediately, if you're facing it, or just kill the player. The best way to remove a card from the battlefield is to hit the player that controls the card. So if you're able to kill the player that controls Ashiok quickly enough, it might not be a problem. So I just wanted to bring that up to you, and the reason why these From Beyonds are in here is because it helps with the other enchantments costs. It makes a 1/1 at the beginning of your turn, and the 1/1 can be sacrificed to trigger your Aid from the Cows, which is a pretty good card. And if you wanted to, you could even run Cryptolith Rite, which would allow your 1/1s to tap for mana. That's really up to you. And then you could, of course, add in the Reassembling Skeleton Infinite Combo, which is Reassembling Skeleton, Sifter of Skulls, and Pitiless Plunder, and then any Sacrifice Outlet. And that will win you the game with Zilliport Cutthroat or a Archer, whatever the 4-drop is that has Death Touch, that thing. Poison Tip Archer. And if you wanted to run that deck, you could. I do want to just mention this card. It's not legal in Pioneer because it's from a set that's too old. But if you ever want to build a fun, just, casual deck, Essence of the Wild, Reassembling Skeleton, Death's Presence, and Feed the Pack, what that does is you pay 2 to bring back Reassembling Skeleton. It becomes a 6/6. Then you sacrifice it to create 6/6/6 wolves, and then you put 6+1/+1 counters on something. Of course, you don't need that Death's Presence, but you need the Feed the Pack at least. And then every turn for 2 mana, you can create 6/6/6s, which is really OP. And then if this thing dies, it doesn't matter because the rest of your creatures are a copy of it anyway. So once you get that thing going, it's a really nice engine. And it only takes 14 mana to set up, so you can have it done on turn 7, I think. Yeah, turn 7 you can do that, or quicker if you use Blood for Bones or something. So I just thought I'd mention that because that's a really fun deck. So thank you guys for watching. Discord in the description. Go check that out, please. And I will see you all next time.